We are live. So excited to welcome my friend Rebecca Vickers to the show. She is in the operations and marketing leader at FMO Media, and we are going to have an awesome conversation. The episode is number 56 and is entitled From Manual to Magic, Leveraging AI to Scale Marketing Operations. This is absolutely going to be a really fun conversation. And so to kick it off, Rebecca, we'd like to ask you, what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I have been so looking forward to this conversation. I'm literally on the edge of my seat, excited to talk about AI and automation because it is top of mind. And one of the things I've been thinking about this past week in preparing for our session today is just how much AI was a part of the Super Bowl in the advertising. And it was like a mixture of AI and celebrities. And so I think just, from everything we've been talking about in marketing in the industry, AI and automation are the bigger topics. And so I know, we're all either in different stages of using it today, and you might be a beginner, you might be a little hesitant to incorporate it in your marketing or even in your operations. That's where I actually have heard a lot of resistance from folks is incorporating AI and automation in their operations. So I'm excited to chat about that and hear from the three of you too, because I know you're also leveraging AI and automation and have some really wonderful insights. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Eric.
When you say, Rebecca, when you say using AI in operations, what are you talking about when you're say using AI in operations?
Well, that's a great question, because I don't know anytime that I hear about people using AI or afraid and putting resistance up to AI in operations, they feel like the work isn't original. And if it's not coming from them, then it's not genuine and it might not be good work. And that can be a little subjective, I think. Anyway, we could go on to another tangent about that. But I love using AI for anything from spelling and grammar check to organizing notes and setting up summaries of meetings. I'll use AI for a whole plethora of client services related tasks that are those tedious, time-consuming tasks. And a large part of operations is being efficient and effective. I think those two things have to go hand in hand when you're in any kind of operations. And if you can both automate and use AI to predict some of those repetitive, time-consuming, sometimes just incredibly boring tasks that we have in our day-to-day, then you can save that time for the more strategic, creative, brainstorming aspect of the job so that you have a nice balance of automation and manual. And I think AI has just been a game changer for us, because when you are kind of stuck in the daily recurring items that you have on your to-do, if you can make some of that knowledge transfer easier, if you can make some of the tasks when it comes to just organizing your workspace, organizing your email, then it does free up that brain space. So for me, there are a lot of different ways that we can use AI in our operations. I'll even extend that to training and development, because that's also a huge part of what I do as an operational leader, is making sure that our team is up to date on the latest and the greatest. And AI can help me transfer that knowledge, share that information with them in a way that doesn't take up so much of my time having to think through, all right, how am I going to deliver this? How are we going to train everybody efficiently and effectively?
So I feel I have so many different things that I want to talk about that you just talked about, but I'm going to bring up, I have this crazy theory. I'm going to be fascinated to hear your reaction to it. But my crazy theory, Eric's heard this before, is that right now we are focused on how humans prompt AI. And how, we basically take human tasks and use AI to make those tasks easier, better, whatever. But I think the real breakthroughs are going to happen when we start to think about how AI can prompt humans. And what I mean by that is, how do you get it so that this content that we're so worried isn't going to be authentic or whatever? We say, well, only like let's assume for a second that it's not good enough to write great copy, or it's not good enough to produce the creativity or whatever it is. What if the AI, to your point, was doing all the task and basically putting in front of the human saying, I can't do this part. So I need you to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of the information that you need in order to write good copy or to put together a good video or whatever it is. I'm going to put it in front of you so that you have it. And so the AI is essentially prompting the human. And so my analogy for this is it's a little bit like the Industrial Revolution. If you think about a conveyor belt, right? The conveyor belt was the mechanics of the logistics essentially prompting the human, here's another car, you need to turn the screw. But that created a huge revolution in the way we did work. I think there's this interesting idea of whether or not that's going to happen with knowledge work and creative work, etc., where it's you just prompt the human. I don't know. Anyway, interested in your reaction to that. That's my crazy theory of how AI is going to change operations.
I love that theory. I think we're doing, or at least I and my team, I think we're doing a small portion of that, because the way I interpret that idea is in how AI can give us templates and structure for something, and then we can input the tailored, specific, customizable options that we need. We do use templates so much, and I think it's so crucial for operations and being able to scale that you use really good quality templates, because templates take talent. That's something that we talk a lot about at my job and with the team, because even in using templates, there is still that idea of, well, it's not tailored, it's not personalized. And really, if you have a really good structure, like a really good strategy, and strategy is how you're going to win and play in a particular space, right? So it can be very simple. Your template can be very simple. But when you apply that information and insight, then that's where you're customizing it. And I see that same kind of usage with AI and how we use AI. We will get the template or the structure, and then we can kind of like a Mad Libs. We can input.
I was gonna go with like a Shakespeare style sonnet, but Mad Libs.
I have a theater film background, so I love the sonnet approach.
Well, man, my point being, like, it's not like you would say that Shakespeare wasn't being creative because he had a template that he had, with a certain rhyme scheme and whatever. That doesn't make him not creative. It gave him sort of a limit, rules in which to be creative in, which in some ways is actually a powerful way to induce creativity.
Well, worlds colliding here. My world's colliding, Eric, when you think about it too. Shakespeare, from the little enough that we do know about him, and any real writer at the time, they were pulling inspiration from many different sources, whether it was from ancient mythology to the current events of the time, and their writing was serving as a kind of propaganda for those in power or against those in power, to just fun current events, and then stealing from other writers as well, or playing, poking jabs at other writers. I kind of see that as AI as well, because especially, the generative AI, it's pulling that information from all these different sources and compiling it for us. For those of us who remember dial-up, I don't think anyone really has the patience for dial-up anymore. So AI is feeding into that impatient need for the quickness of getting information at our fingertips a lot faster. And it's really reduced that creative or writer's block that we used to have. I don't want to say it's non-existent anymore, because I still get writer's block, but it has been a source or solution for removing that from us. But I see even more parallels to Shakespeare and writers of the past. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I definitely second you on the writer's block. I love AI for that, because I am infamous for the writer's blocks. But aside from that, from your perspective, what are the best practices for using AI in operations now? What do you think anybody would benefit from or should consider?
Well, I love that question, because my motto, and I stole this, I believe it's a past Russian proverb, but you want to trust, but verify. And humans, we're all prone to mistakes. We have errors, we're not perfect. I say that as a recovering perfectionist. As much as we want to get everything right and perfect the first time, we can't. And AI is pulling from our own imperfections, our own biases. So there's an extent to which I would love to trust what AI is giving me, but I need to verify it. There have been so many times when I put something into ChatGPT, I prompted it, and it's given me the wrong information. I have my own podcast, and I will input the transcript from a podcast and ask Chat to give me some of the most engaging quotes. And it has gotten it wrong. It has paraphrased. It has said something completely other than what guests or myself have said. So I know that there are still going to be errors and potential for mistakes or bias within the outcome, whatever we're getting. So I think that's one of the bigger things that I always say with, to our team is use precaution there. We don't want to simply copy and paste whatever we get from AI. AI is not going to be as creative as we can be, and it's not always going to have the context or ability to translate what it's giving us into our own use case and scenario.
Which by the way, is the same thing that you could say about an intern or a junior staff member or whatever. It's the exact same thing, except when AI messes it up, people's assumption is they can never do it. Some people assume that the intern or the junior staff member can never do it, but those are usually not your favorite bosses. But we have this a tendency to expect perfection from AI, and I think what you're describing is, in the trust but verify concept is, we should treat AI a little bit more like it's a colleague than that it's like an oracle, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I also think that it would especially apply to agents, right? Because the agent is presumably, runs on their own to complete a task. So there needs to be a workflow. Where do you interfere and where do you make sure that the agent did not amplify its own imperfections accidentally?
Yeah.
And this is, I often refer to ChatGPT as the collective stupidity of the internet, right? But it's funny too. Eric talks about this as thinking about an intern, but the other thing we often talk about is it's a tool, right? It is a tool, and it's like why does this hammer not build my house is sort of what we're sometimes, I think, find ourselves saying. It's not going to do. It's not. At some point, it may be able to do even more than it does now. Of course, it will, but it does more than it did last week. Most weeks now we were but just understanding that it is a tool and that it's a tool to enhance human intelligence. I think is the danger is we try to use it as a way of replacing human intelligence. So actually, on that note, I'd be fascinated to hear what is it that you talked a little bit about where to use AI now, but where do you see things going? What do you think's next in AI and operations?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's happening now in terms of generating content like we've been talking about, and how it is helping us to organize our content in a better way, as well as make our process for creating content more efficient. And I've spent the last year plus, I want to say it's been a full 2 years using programs like ChatGPT. I also remind people, Grammarly, the spelling and grammar check platform, they are AI too. So I've been using it a lot longer. But in terms of using something like ChatGPT or Riverside FM, which has AI built into it, or something like 11 Labs, which can generate voiceover audio, or even take my own voice and create audio, we're looking to find efficiency in how we can use AI with our processes, so that we're not removing that human element of strategizing what we're doing, but we're helping make the process streamlined. That's one of my favorite words, is streamlined, because the more that you scale, the larger you get, the more simple your process really needs to be. Otherwise, you're introducing a lot of room for chaos. There's a formula, a communication formula for people working together. And the more people you have working on a project, the more communication channels grow from that, which is kind of a no-brainer, but there is an actual formula for that. And I see that in the same thing that when we apply the tools that we're using to our systems, we want to make sure that the tools, the SOPs, the processes that umbrella that, and the people are all on the same page and aligned, and it's as simple as possible so that we eliminate any of that potential chaos.
Right.
I want to dive into this element of scaling because it's in the title. You just mentioned it, like scaling. So speeding things up obviously leads to a certain degree of scaling. But like if we just kind of hone in on that scaling piece, there are certain elements of scaling I think that are sort of unique to it as a concept, and it could be a question of training, it could be a question of templates or whatever. But I just want to get your thoughts on just focusing on that scaling piece, and what does scaling mean to you? Does that mean like I can just add the next person and whatever, I can add 10 clients to every staff member? Like, how are you thinking about scaling? Because it could be anywhere from linear to exponential scaling, that you might be able to enable.
I'm glad that you asked for the definition of scaling, Eric, because I've been in multiple conversations with folks of different industries and backgrounds and roles, and they typically have their own understanding of what scaling means. So I think it's really important, especially because words matter and the definitions are important, that we do ask that question. So for me, it's actually both. It's the idea, the understanding that especially in marketing these days, we might need to have small but mighty teams who are capable of handling higher volumes. And I'm a big advocate for avoiding burnout as much as possible. And I think that's why I'm really good at what I do, in especially the operations side, because I want to find ways for our team especially, but for anybody to be able to tackle a higher volume and not lose the quality.
Right.
And that gets me to the other point, which is how can we scale quality as well? And I know this isn't a novel, original idea, but the understanding that you can take quality and turn it into quantity if you have some of those templated systems, if you have some formulas for being able to take quality and turn it into different types or categories or elements. We'll use content, for example. So, and I'll use my own podcast, for example. I can take a podcast full-length recording and I can turn it into smaller bite-sized pieces of content at the click of a button now with AI via the platform that I use. And then I can also use AI to generate a LinkedIn article, which I've turned into a newsletter. I can have AI come up with, having read my transcript, a plethora of different pieces of content, whether it's carousel post or a quote card. If I feed it the formula, if I feed it the information that I need, it can then generate that pre-episode plan for launching and any of that post-episode promotion that I also want to create. And so that, just as an individual doing even my own marketing, is incredible. I remember working on marketing teams where you're just hoping that your Mac would be able to talk to the PC and you could translate something to a printer, and you'd have enough people to disseminate flyers and postcards on the street. And now we can reach so much more audiences, bigger audiences, more targeted audiences, tailor our messaging with the tool that is AI. As we've talked about, it is a tool, and finding ways to make it easier for ourselves. So that's part of how I look at it. But ultimately, for me, scaling is how can we make sure we're increasing revenue, or maybe it's increasing reach without adding any additional brains or hands or team members that you might not have the budget to have for agencies or otherwise.
So this is so we have, I think, probably on the last few episodes, this issue has come up. So I'm being fascinated about your answer, Rebecca, is this question of, is AI in marketing going to lead to more jobs or fewer jobs?
Jeff, before you answer that, Rebecca, like that is what I wrote down in my notes to ask next.
Yes,
just so you know. So there's definitely we definitely have the same statistical sort of base for our internal LLM.
The Sigel LLM is pretty consistent.
You're definitely twinning. You're on the same wavelength.
We are definitely
I think
twinning.
I think that's an important question. I can't predict the future. I'm sure AI would try to predict an answer for us too. My sort of go-to when anyone has asked me or felt threatened by AI and if it's going to replace their job is no, I don't think it will replace a human's job so long as the human understands how to use the tools and technology. And I think that's been the case for any kind of tool or piece of technology over the years. I've seen folks, when I started in marketing, social media was just coming onto the scene as an advertising tool, an organic option for content and promotion. And people were really untrustworthy of it then. And I was a huge advocate for building in digital marketing and social media. I also remember when we moved from coding email newsletters to drag and drop with MailChimp and Constant Contact. And people were hesitant then. Even at that time, we were talking about automation and workflows within our emails and creating drip campaigns. And there was a lot of resistance to using automation because people were afraid that it was going to take the human touch, the human element out of it, when it's really the opposite. You have more opportunity for the human connection because you're saving the time on the back end and you're tailoring your messaging, you're focusing your audience. So that's the long answer to the short, important question. I truly believe that similar to how electricity came on the scene and people were afraid of it way back then, to computers and, what is this going to mean for the workforce? We have to learn it, understand it to the degree that it will help us do our jobs better. Because when you can do your job better and more efficiently and effectively, then you save time to educate yourself, get better yourself in whatever your industry is, whatever your role is, take yourself to the next level and find other ways of empowering those around you to be better at whatever it is that you're problem solving, solutioneering, whatever deliverable outcome you're responsible for.
So I'm going to jump in right now because we always have this segment here where we ask ChatGPT to ask some questions, and I changed it up a little bit this time, and so I'm going to read you. I'm going to do 3 questions instead of 2 questions, and I'm just going to read the first question that Perplexity came up with, the first question that Gemini came up with, and the first question that ChatGPT. So I take I haven't even read these, whatever. So I'm going to start with.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong is that it won't, like my pre-prompted stuff will not show up properly, but I think I got that covered. All right, so this is Perplexity, and it's interesting because we always ask what are 5 funny questions to ask a marketing operations expert, and so it for some reason Perplexity decided to give me dad jokes. How did Yoda get his first lead?
How did he do what?
How did he get his first lead? He used Salesforce.
That's a good one.
That is good stuff.
It's terrible. I would definitely use that if I were marketing for Star Wars. I wish that I could come up with that. My husband is really good at puns.
Well, like 5.
I think there's like I think there's an ad to be made jointly between Star Wars and Salesforce. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You're right.
It's like Super Bowl ad for sure.
Here is Gemini's answer to the question. I'm just giving you the first one. There were like 5 other puns, but we don't have time for all the puns. So this one actually asked the question. So Gemini says, if our marketing automation platform suddenly became sentient and demanded a vacation, what's the contingency plan?
Oh, we got to go old school, baby. It's manual. But
magazine ads all month long.
This is where I go to my bank of ideas, though. I always like to have a backup of great ideas or just things that have worked in the past. I've run into that situation before too, where your technology fails on you. And that's where being resourceful comes in. And that's why I don't believe AI will replace us. We're still needed.
All right. The last one is ChatGPT. If marketing automation tools were people, which one would be the most high maintenance friend?
Whoa, what?
Oh,
I don't know.
high maintenance.
I told you I take no credit or blame for these questions.
Right. Can you? I just need to just to clarify. Is it asking which AI services?
If marketing automation tools were
okay.
people, which one would be the most high maintenance friend? It says, but whatever, high maintenance. Which is it? What is the most? What's your most high maintenance marketing automation tool? Not necessarily AI, but
okay. Well, I love this tool. So if they ever listen, anyone from the company listens, I hope they don't take this the wrong way, but HubSpot. HubSpot is the most high maintenance, and purely for the best part of HubSpot in the fact that they're constantly iterating and improving and offering features. You have to keep up with it so much to be able to use it. And there are many different elements and services to HubSpot. So I'm going to go with HubSpot, although Zapier is a close second because I feel like you got to keep an eye on Zapier and make sure that it's not pausing itself or stopping or running into any errors. So that would be my close second.
I'll throw one in, a Midjourney, because Midjourney that's an image generator. And for the interesting thing with Midjourney is when it's brilliant, it's brilliant. But when it's not brilliant, you can just, bang your head against the wall and it's going to do it. So
true. 6 legs, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Funny because the other day Eric was like playing around with I don't remember what service it was, but it was it through AWS or something? I don't know that you were getting.
What we're talking about yet.
There was like an image. It was like generating video, and it was like pretty good B-roll, except that. And so I looked at it the first time I looked at it, I'm like, that's fine, that's really cool, whatever. And I'm like, oh, you could use that. And then Eric was like showing it to me again later, and I'm looking at it like, do you realize that mom is wearing both a skirt and pants?
Yeah,
I was like, that is a stylistic choice. I mean, come on, people do that.
He was dressed in like a business suit, but it had both skirt and pants. It was very weird. Anyway, but it was like it was subtle. Like it was subtle enough that I didn't notice it the first time. Yeah. So, well, all right. So there you go. There's the goofy questions but it's. I think the most fascinating thing about that exercise was that Perplexity has a sense of humor. So.
Yes, I don't use Perplexity for that.
Apparently,
well, actually, to be fair, like one of the people we've been recently working with, he's his company that he wanted us to give a shot to. He's like, yeah, but this is a very irreverent kind of approach, and it's like we're kind of like, like you don't want to be doing blah blah blah, like this kind of like attitude in his marketing and how he presents. He's like, let's see how it does on that. And so I literally fed in the personality of like, so and so is, an ornery, is one of the Muppets from up on the balcony type of person, or whatever. I didn't put it that way, but I should have. That might have been funnier. And Jeff, you read all of that stuff. It was pretty good. It was like, actually, I asked it. One of the articles I had it right was like, can you answer this question, but have it be all about Marvel superheroes? And it's just like fed all this like goofy stuff about Marvel superheroes into it, and then it just has this kind of like sarcastic attitude or whatever. Like it is very capable of sort of adopting the right attitude.
So I want to pick up on, Rebecca, a comment that you made earlier about overwhelm. You were talking about with respect to HubSpot, but I think we were talking about this a little bit before we went live as well, is how, in some ways, the speed at which AI is moving, the speed at which it creates content, the speed at which tools are changing in these, in HubSpot, whatever, is so fast right now that it is easy to become overwhelmed. So what is your thinking on how do you deal with that?
Yes, you're right. So overwhelm is a feeling and it can pass, but we can sort of trigger that for ourselves if we allow shiny object syndrome to take over and we're constantly craving, well, what's the new tool? What's the newest thing, gadget, piece of AI or automation that we can use? And so my quick rules of thumb are to make sure you're not automating what you don't know. So only automate what you do know and really consider what are the tedious things that I hate doing, or just, it's just tedious. Maybe you don't hate it, but it's something you would rather not spend your time doing, and look to see if you can automate those and be really focused on how you're using automation. When it comes to AI, I've seen the meme image going around that says, I wish AI would do my laundry and dishes versus being my creative thought, because I want to do that.
Right.
And that resonates with me. So where can you use AI to kind of like what you were sharing too, Eric? How can we use it as a testing ground, as a place of experimentation that allows us to do more of that and less of the creative element that maybe we want to have control over? At least keep your control there. And then when you're looking at AI in terms of content creation, choose the tools that have the maybe top 3, and that might even be too much, but top 3 features that are going to make your job easier and still give you the quality that you need. I'll give you the quick example of just, there are so many different editing platforms for short form content, especially, and a lot of them do not all have the same features, or they have some predominant features that are very effective, and some of their tertiary and beyond features are just not as advanced. And so it can be really hard choosing one of those platforms. You have to find what is going to work for you versus trying to amass a huge marketing tech stack of AI platforms. What's the simplest, most effective for you? And keep it simple. Back to what I was saying earlier, you don't want to operate in chaos. It has to be very clear and streamlined. So I'm very mindful of making sure that we're not just adding tools and tech and gadgets and throwing it at something for the sake of being innovative. It's really about how are we being strategic and focused with our time and attention so that we can be more innovative and creative in the output, the outcomes that we're looking for.
So, Rebecca, as promised, this half an hour has flown by really fast. We've come to the point in our episode where we like to go around and ask everybody to leave the audience with one thing. And that could be an idea you already brought up, a new idea you haven't said before. The one thing I don't tell the guest beforehand is I always make them go first. So you have no time to think, and somehow I always get to go last, which sounds like it's actually a benefit, but actually it's not necessarily a benefit, because then you guys have all said the thing I want to say. So, but in any case, Rebecca, what's one thing you want to leave our audience with?
Yes. So it is something that we've already shared before, but everyone needs to remember that AI is a tool. It's not a replacement for a human. It can enhance our marketing and operations efforts, but when it comes to strategy, creativity, and keeping that human connection, which is at the core of marketing, then you cannot replace that with AI or automation. So fret not. I do not believe that it's going to replace humans. Remember that it is a tool and it's how you use it. So it's important for all of us to leverage that tool well.
Awesome. Before I jump in with my one thing, Rebecca, can you tell us what is the best place for people to connect with you or reach you?
Oh, yes. Well, I love connecting with folks on LinkedIn. And so you can find me, Rebecca Vickers, on LinkedIn. I'm happy to accept any requests, and you can follow me. And if you have any questions about how to use any AI automation tools in your operations or your marketing, I'm happy to share.
By the way, my rule for LinkedIn for people who reach out to me is, as long as you're not a financial advisor or recruiter, I'm happy to connect with you.
A great rule. I'm going to adopt that.
So, all right. Well, so my one thing, I guess, is I think I'm going to sort of talk about this idea of overwhelm and this concern that I think that people have, that there's just so much happening right now. And I think that my kind of takeaway is you got to keep trying stuff. You got to be willing to sort of give it a try, even if it's doesn't work or whatever. Don't sort of do it once, give up on it, whatever, because if you're not trying this stuff, what's going to happen is at some point the whole, it will pass you by and you will be, you'll be behind. And so I think, we often talk about this idea that the marketers that will have jobs after this all shaked out are the ones that have essentially embraced the AI, as opposed to the ones that have decided that they're not going to, that it's never going to be good enough or whatever. And so embrace the AI, but reckon, to your point, trust but verify. Make sure you're not, don't put the six heads or the, or the bad copy up, or the completely made up, It's actually really funny when I've asked ChatGPT to write a bio about me, and I feed it my LinkedIn, link, and it always makes up stuff. Like I went to a different college. I had a totally different career. It's very weird. So anyway,
I always make up stuff about you too.
Anyway, Elena, that's it over to you.
Sure. I would add to it that everybody should establish their own relationship with AI and take it as a tool to achieve their objective, whatever will be. For people like myself, I need it for the writer's block. Somebody else would need it instead of MailChimp. Somebody else would need this tool to research or to create reports. It varies, but I think we all have to adopt the tool, understand our role and the tool's role, and also understand the speed with which it evolves and stay with it, so we can all benefit from it to the max in our careers.
And so I actually have two things. The thing that I picked up on from Rebecca, what you said was, I think that phrase that you said, automate what you know. I think that, or what needs to be automated. I think that's a really important point. It's like, if you're going to automate the thing that's going to change tomorrow, then you just wasted a lot of time automating something that you don't need to automate. So find the thing that bores you, or that you really know you're going to need to automate, and dive into that. The other thing I just want to leave everybody with, and this is kind of maybe picking a little bit on what Jeff said about the conveyor belt theory, is like, I think when we know that it's gone, when it's really arrived, is when the AI starts giving you your yearly review. Like that's like, anyway, I'm glad I'm out of the. I'm glad I work for myself at that.
So that is a nice plug for Rebecca's other gig, which is a podcast called let's see if I get Bad Bosses, Great Leaders. But I don't know, Rebecca. I mean, we've had leadership stuff, and there's some folks that would probably, AI would do a lot better than that.
Yeah, actually, now that you say that,
right.
I know some of those people.
It can be very helpful in terms of verbiage. I hope it's not leading and implementing that review. I will say, I know in the university setting, the AI is grading papers. So we're kind of there in a way too. Yeah. So being mindful of that, and we could talk for ages and forever. Another avenue would be even considering, should it be doing that if we're not really allowed to use AI when writing our papers? So
right. Well, it sounds like we need to have you back at some point, Rebecca. I want to thank you so much for a great conversation. This has been a great episode, and we look forward to hearing more of your thoughts as this AI revolution continues. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. My pleasure.